Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the cargo manifest one more time. The Dawn Runner was packed full of medical supplies and food rations headed for New Haven Colony. It was supposed to be a simple 3-day run-through, safe space. Nothing dangerous about it. He had been flying cargo ships for the Terran Federation for 8 years now. Most pilots complained about the boring runs, but Jake liked the peace and quiet. No shooting, no politics, just him and his ship moving supplies from one place to another. It was honest work that helped people. The navigation computer beeped softly. Jake glanced at the display and frowned. 2 large fleets were moving toward each other near his planned route. The Zephyrian Empire and the Cortan Dominion were at it again. Their war had been going on for so long that most people just accepted it as a fact of life. Jake adjusted his course to swing wide around the conflict zone. The detour would add 6 hours to his trip, but it was better than getting caught between 2 angry alien fleets. He had seen what happened to civilian ships that got too close to their battles. Nothing good ever came from it. 3 hours later, his ship shook violently. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel. Jake grabbed the pilot seat as another explosion rocked the Dawn Runner. "What the hell?" he muttered, checking his sensors. 2 fleets were fighting all around him. Somehow the battle had moved, right into his path. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around his small cargo ship. A Zephyrian cruiser appeared on his left, its hull glowing with battle damage. It was firing everything it had at 3 Cortan destroyers. The Cortan ships were smaller but faster, dancing around the bigger ship like angry wasps. Jake tried to turn away from the battle, but his engines were already damaged. The ship barely responded to his controls. Another explosion shook the Dawn Runner, and this time he could hear air hissing out through a hull breach. His emergency radio crackled to life. "Unknown cargo vessel, this is Captain Voss of the Cortan destroyer Red Talon. Leave this area immediately or you will be fired upon." Before Jake could respond, a different voice cut in. "Human ship, this is Commander Tal of the Zephyrian cruiser. Golden Star, we are claiming salvage rights on your vessel. Prepare to be boarded." "Hey, wait a minute," Jake said into his radio. "I'm just carrying medical supplies. I'm not part of your war." Neither alien captain seemed to care. The Cortan ships moved closer, probably planning to destroy him to prevent the Zephyrians from getting his cargo. The Zephyrian cruiser was trying to get between Jake's ship and the Cortan destroyers. Jake's ship shook again as stray weapons fire hit his hull. His main engine died completely. Emergency power kicked in, but it would not last long. He was trapped between 2 alien fleets that saw him as either a prize to be taken or a threat to be destroyed. The Dawn Runner's hull groaned under the stress. More air leaked out through cracks in the metal. Jake sealed his flight suit and activated his emergency oxygen supply. His ship was dying around him, and there was nothing he could do about it. Through his front window, he could see a planet. Below, Valdris Prime, according to his navigation computer. It was listed as uninhabited and dangerous, but right now it looked like his only chance. If he could make it to the surface, he might survive long enough for someone to rescue him. Jake fired his maneuvering thrusters and pointed the nose of his ship toward the planet. The Dawn Runner fell toward Valdris Prime like a burning rock. Behind him, the alien fleets continued their battle, already forgetting about the small human cargo ship. The planet's atmosphere grabbed his ship and shook it hard. Jake fought with his controls, trying to keep the nose up and find somewhere soft to crash. The surface rushed up at him fast. He could see thick forests and rocky hills, but no good landing spots. His ship hit the treetops and bounced twice before slamming into the ground. Jake's head hit the control panel hard, and everything went black. When he woke up, smoke was filling the cockpit. Jake unbuckled his safety harness and crawled toward the emergency exit. His head hurt and his left arm felt wrong, but he was alive. The exit hatch opened with a loud bang, and fresh air rushed in. Jake stumbled out of his ruined ship and looked around. Tall purple trees surrounded him, and the air smelled like flowers and smoke. 2 of Valdris Prime's 3 moons were visible in the orange sky. He had made it to the surface, but he was completely alone on an unknown planet. Then he heard a soft moan coming from his left. Jake limped toward the sound and found another crash site about 50 yards away. A small escape pod had hit the ground hard, leaving a long scar in the dirt. The pod's hatch was open, and someone was lying next to it. Jake hurried over and knelt beside the figure. It was a young woman with pale blue skin and silver hair. Her face had intricate scars that looked like they had been made on purpose, not from the crash. She wore torn clothing that looked expensive, and there was dried blood on her forehead. She was definitely not human. But she was hurt, and alone just like him. Jake checked her pulse and breathing. Both seemed normal, though he was not sure what normal was for her species. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at him with fear. "Please," she whispered in accented but understandable Terran standard, "do not let them find me." Jake looked up at the sky. He could still see flashes of light from the space battle above. Soon, one side or the other would send ships down to look for survivors. This woman was clearly running from something, and Jake was just a cargo pilot who wanted to go home. The smart thing would be to help her get somewhere safe and then look for his own rescue. But as he looked at her frightened face, Jake made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Okay," he said, helping her sit up. "Let's get out of here." Jake helped the blue-skinned woman to her feet. She was taller than most humans, but she moved carefully like someone who was hurt. Her silver hair caught the light from the orange sky above them. "What is your name?" Jake asked as he supported her weight. "Maya," she said quietly. "Thank you for helping me." Jake nodded and looked around the crash site. Smoke was still rising from both their ships. Soon, the alien fleets above would send search parties down to look for survivors. They needed to get away from here fast. "Can you walk?" he asked. Maya took a few steps and winced. "Yes, but not far." Jake went back to his ship and grabbed his emergency pack. It had basic survival gear, some food, and a small medical kit. Not much for surviving on an alien planet, but it was better than nothing. They walked into the purple forest as fast as Maya could manage. The trees were huge and strange, with leaves that made soft music when the wind blew through them. Jake kept looking up at the sky, watching for ships that might be searching for them. After an hour of walking, Maya had to rest. She sat down on a fallen log and held her side where her ribs hurt. Jake gave her some water and looked at the cut on her forehead. "This needs cleaning," he said, opening his medical kit. Maya flinched when he touched her face, but she let him clean the wound. As he worked, she watched him with curious eyes. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes." "Jake Morrison, cargo pilot for the Terran Federation. I have heard of humans. They say you are different from other species." Jake smiled. "Different how?" Maya thought about this. "Unpredictable, stubborn. You do things that make no sense, like helping a stranger on a crashed planet. Yes, like that." They rested for a few more minutes, then continued walking deeper into the forest. Jake wanted to put as much distance as possible between them and the crash sites. As they walked, Maya's Terran standard got better. She was a fast learner. That night, Jake made a small fire in a cave he found. The cave was dry and hidden, a good place to hide from search parties. Maya sat close to the fire and told him more about herself. "I was running away," she said. "There are people who want to use me for their own plans, bad people who care nothing for peace." Jake did not ask for details. Everyone had secrets, and he figured she would tell him more when she was ready. For now, it was enough that they were both alive and safe. The next morning, Jake woke up to find Maya already awake and looking out of the cave entrance. She was very still, like a statue. "What is it?" he whispered. "Listen," she said. Jake listened, carefully. In the distance, he could hear the sound of engines. Ships were flying over the forest, probably looking for them. They stayed quiet in the cave until the sounds went away. Over the next few days, they settled into a routine. Jake used his military training to find food and water. Maya surprised him by knowing which plants were safe to eat and which ones would make them sick. She also seemed to know when the weather was going to change. "How do you know about the plants?" Jake asked one day as they gathered berries. My people learn these things when we are young, Maya said. We must know how to survive. In the wild, Jake noticed that she never said what her people were called or where they came from. She was keeping secrets, but he did not mind. They were surviving together, and that was what mattered. A week after the crash, Maya got sick. She had a fever and could barely stand up. Jake recognized the symptoms from his survival training. She had been infected by some kind of local parasite. I need medicine, Jake said, checking her temperature. The kind of medicine I do not have. Maya was too sick to argue. Jake made her comfortable in their cave and then set out alone. He had seen Corton patrol ships landing near a settlement about 10 miles away. If there was medicine anywhere on this planet, it would be there. The journey took him 2 days. Jake moved carefully, staying hidden from patrols and avoiding the main roads. The Corton settlement was small but well defended. Getting in would be dangerous. Getting out would be even worse. Jake waited until night, then snuck into the settlement. The medical facility was in the center, surrounded by guards. He had to disable 2 sentries and break 3 locks to get inside. The medicine storage room had everything he needed. As he filled his pack with antibiotics and fever reducers, alarms started going off. Someone had found the unconscious guards. Jake ran for the exit as Corton soldiers surrounded the building. He made it out, but just barely. Energy blasts lit up the night behind him as he disappeared into the forest. It took him another 2 days to make it back to Maya, running and hiding the whole way. Maya was much worse when he returned. Her fever was so high that she was talking, in her sleep, saying words in a language Jake did not understand. He gave her the medicine and waited. For 3 days, Jake was not sure she would live. He stayed by her side, giving her water and medicine, keeping her warm when she shivered and cool when the fever spiked. He had risked everything to save her, and he was not going to give up now. On the 4th day, Maya's fever broke. She opened her eyes and looked at him with clear understanding. You saved me, she said weakly. We save each other, Jake replied. That is what partners do. Maya smiled, and Jake realized that something had changed between them. They were no longer just 2 strangers helping each other survive. They had become something more. Friends, partners, people who would risk everything for each other. Neither of them knew that this trust would soon be tested in ways they could not imagine. Jake and Maya had been living in the forest for 3 weeks when everything changed. They had found a good spot near a stream with fresh water and plenty of food. Jake was teaching Maya how to make traps for small animals when they heard the ships coming. Hide, Maya whispered, grabbing Jake's arm. They crawled under some thick bushes and waited. 3 Zephyrian ships landed in the clearing where they had been working just minutes before. The ships were sleek and silver, much fancier than the military vessels Jake had seen before. Soldiers in golden armor stepped out of the ships. Their leader was a tall man with scars on his face and cold eyes. He wore more decorations than the others, marking him as someone important. Princess Maya, the leader called out in a loud voice. We know you are here. Come out and no one will be hurt. Jake looked at Maya in shock. Princess? She had never told him she was royalty. Maya's face was pale and her hands were shaking. I have to go, she whispered to Jake. If I do not, they will burn down the whole forest looking for me. Wait, Jake said. Princess? Maya looked at him with sad eyes. I am sorry I lied to you. I am Maya Zeth-Kalar, heir to the Zephyrian throne. I was running from people who want to control me. Before Jake could say anything else, Maya stood up and walked into the clearing. The soldiers immediately pointed their weapons at her, but they did not fire. General Kaney Voltar, Maya said to their leader. I should have known you would find me. The general smiled, but it was not a kind smile. My dear princess, we have been looking everywhere for you. Your father is very worried. My father is dead, Maya said coldly. You made sure of that. General. Voltar laughed. Accidents happen in war, but do not worry. When we are married, I will take very good care of the throne. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. This man was threatening Maya, and Jake could not just sit there and watch. He started to move forward, but Maya made a small gesture with her hand. Every Zephyrian soldier immediately dropped to one knee. Even General Voltar bowed his head slightly before catching himself. "You forget yourself, General," Maya said in a voice Jake had never heard before. It was the voice of someone born to command. "I am your princess, and you will show proper respect." General Voltar's face turned red with anger. "You have been gone too long, Maya. Living like a wild animal has made you forget your place. You will come with me now and marry me as planned. The noble houses have already agreed." "I will never marry you," Maya said. "You killed my father to steal his throne. You think I do not know about your plans?" "It does not matter what you know," General Voltar said. "You will do as you are told or your people will suffer." That was when Jake decided he had heard enough. He stepped out of the bushes with his hands raised, but his eyes were locked on General Voltar. "The lady said no," Jake said calmly. The Yar soldiers spun around and pointed their weapons at him. General Voltar looked confused. "Who is this human?" he demanded. "A friend," Maya said quickly. "He saved my life." General Voltar studied Jake with interest. "A human friend? How unusual. I suppose you have been telling him all our secrets?" "He knows nothing about our politics," Maya said. "Let him go." "I think not," General Voltar said. He turned to his soldiers. "Arrest the princess and execute the human spy." The soldiers hesitated. They looked confused, torn between loyalty to their princess and fear of their general. "I am your princess," Maya said in her commanding voice. "I order you to stand down." Half. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The other half kept them pointed at Jake and Maya. General Voltar was furious. "She has been corrupted by alien influence," he shouted. "She is no longer fit to rule. I am taking command by right of military necessity." That was when Jake moved. He had been watching the soldiers, counting their numbers and positions. When General Voltar started shouting, Jake dove to the side and rolled behind a tree. The soldiers who were loyal to General Voltar opened fire, but Jake was already moving. He had learned guerrilla tactics in military training, and he used every trick he knew. Jake grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it in one soldier's face, then took his weapon. He rolled under another soldier's shot and swept his legs, sending him crashing to the ground. The Zephyrians were bigger and stronger than humans, but they were not used to fighting someone who moved like Jake did. While Jake created chaos, Maya rallied the soldiers who were loyal to her. She spoke to them in their own language, reminding them of their oaths and their duty to the royal family. The battle was short but fierce. When the dust settled, half of General Voltar's soldiers had switched sides. The other half were unconscious or disarmed. General Voltar himself was backed against a tree with Jake's stolen weapon pointed at his chest. "You cannot kill me, human," General Voltar said. "I am a Zephyrian general." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But I can make sure you never hurt her again." Maya walked over and placed her hand on Jake's arm. "Let him go," she said softly. Jake looked at her in surprise. "He tried to kill us both." "If we kill him here, it will start a civil war," Maya explained. "My people will tear themselves apart fighting, and the Cortans will destroy what is left." General Voltar smiled nastily. "The princess is right. Kill me, and you doom her people to destruction." Maya turned to face General Voltar. "You are banished from Zephyrian space. If you ever return, you will be executed as a traitor." "This is not over," General Voltar said as he backed toward his ship. "I have allies you know nothing about. The noble houses will never accept a queen who consorts with aliens." General Voltar and his remaining loyal soldiers boarded their ship and flew away. Maya watched them go with worried eyes. "He is right about one thing," she said to Jake. "This is not over. I have to return home and reclaim my throne before he destroys everything my family built." Jake looked at this woman who had been his survival partner for weeks. Now he knew she was one of the most powerful people in the galaxy. What happens now? He asked. Maya turned to him with determination in her eyes. Now we go home, and I hope you will come with me. I am going to need all the help I can get. The journey to the Zephyrian capital world of Ethros took 2 days. Jake had never seen anything like it. The planet was covered in crystal cities that sparkled in the light of twin suns. Tall spires reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that looked like they were made of glass and starlight. Maya's ship landed at the royal palace, a massive structure built into the side of a mountain. Jake felt very small as they walked through halls decorated with precious stones and ancient artwork. Guards in ceremonial armor stood at attention as Maya passed, but Jake could see them staring at him with curious eyes. They have never seen a human in the palace before, Maya explained quietly. Try not to let it bother you. Jake nodded, but he was starting to understand how out of place he was. This was not just another planet. This was the center of an empire that controlled hundreds of worlds, and he was just a cargo pilot from Earth. The throne room was enormous. Hundreds of Zephyrian nobles filled the space, all wearing fancy clothes and jewelry that probably cost more than Jake made in a year. When Maya entered, conversation stopped and everyone turned to look at her. An old man with white hair and kind eyes stepped forward. Princess Maya, he said with relief in his voice. Thank the stars you are safe. We feared the worst when your ship disappeared. Chancellor Bren, Maya said warmly. It is good to see you again. The Chancellor looked at Jake with polite curiosity. And this is? Jake Morrison, Maya said. He saved my life and helped me return home. I owe him everything. The Chancellor bowed slightly to Jake. Then the Zephyrian people owe him a great debt. But not everyone in the throne room was happy to see Maya. A woman with sharp features and cold eyes stepped forward. Princess, she said in a voice like ice, where have you been for the past month? The Empire has been in chaos without proper leadership. Lady Senna, Maya replied carefully. I was dealing with urgent matters of state. Matters that required you to disappear without a word? Lady Senna's eyes moved to Jake. Matters that involved consorting with aliens? Jake felt the temperature in the room drop. Other nobles began whispering among themselves. Some looked angry. Others looked disgusted. All of them were staring at him. Jake Morrison is my guest, Maya said firmly. He will be treated with respect. Respect? Another noble spoke up, a fat man with rings on every finger. Princess, this human has clearly influenced you in ways that are unhealthy. Perhaps you should be examined by the royal physicians. Lord Vex, Maya said, her voice getting dangerous. Are you questioning my fitness to rule? The fat man backed down quickly. Of course not, Princess. I simply worry about alien contamination affecting your judgment. Jake wanted to say something, but Maya caught his eye and shook her head slightly. This was her fight, and she needed to handle it her way. For the next several hours, Maya met with different groups of nobles and officials. Jake stayed close to her side, listening and learning. The Zephyrian Empire was in trouble. The war with the Cortans was going badly. Several colonies had declared independence. The military was split between different factions, and through it, all Jake could see that many of the nobles did not trust Maya anymore. They whispered behind her back about her time away and her association with him. Some openly suggested that she was no longer fit to rule. That night, Maya showed Jake to his rooms in the palace. They were bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth, with windows that looked out over the Crystal City. Your people do not like me very much, Jake said. Maya sat down heavily in a chair. She looked tired and older than her years. They are afraid, she said. Change frightens them, and you represent change. Maybe I should leave, Jake said. I do not want to make things harder for you. No, Maya said quickly. I need you here. You see things differently than we do. Your ideas could help us find solutions to problems we have been fighting for centuries. Jake was not so sure about that, but he could see that Maya was determined. What happens next? Tomorrow I will address the full council, Maya said. I need to convince them that I am still their rightful ruler. Then we can start working on the real problems. But the next morning brought terrible news. Chancellor Bren woke them before dawn with urgent reports. General Voltar had not given up. He had gathered supporters from across the Empire and was marching on the capital with a large army. How many ships does he have? Maya asked as they hurried to the war room. At least 50 capital ships, the Chancellor said, and there are reports of Corton vessels joining his fleet. Jake felt sick to his stomach. He made a deal with your enemies? It appears so, the Chancellor said grimly. General Voltar has promised the Cortons favorable terms if they help him take the throne. Maya stared at the tactical display showing enemy ships approaching the planet. How long before they arrive? 6 hours, maybe less. The war room filled with military officers and government officials. Everyone was talking at once, suggesting different strategies and arguing about what to do. Jake listened to the chaos and realized that the Zephyrians were not used to fighting this kind of war. They were thinking in terms of traditional fleet battles and ground campaigns. What if we do not fight him the way he expects? Jake said suddenly. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at the human who had dared to speak up during a military crisis, explained, Maya said. Jake moved to the tactical display. General Voltar expects you to meet his fleet in space or wait for him to land and attack the palace. What if you do neither? What are you suggesting? Asked the military commander. Challenge him to single combat, Jake said. For the throne. Winner takes all. The Zephyrians looked shocked. That has not been done in centuries, one officer said. And no alien has ever served as a royal champion, added another. Jake looked at Maya. I am not asking to be your champion. I am asking you to think differently about this problem. General Voltar wants to look strong and legitimate. If you challenge him publicly, in front of representatives from across the galaxy, he cannot refuse, without looking like a coward. Maya stared at the tactical display for a long moment. Then she smiled and Jake recognized the expression from their days surviving in the forest. It was the look she got when she was about to do something dangerous and clever. Send a message to General Voltar, she said. Tell him I accept his challenge for the throne. But the combat will be decided by champions, as is traditional. And I choose Jake Morrison of Earth to fight for me. The room erupted in arguments and protests, but Maya held up her hand for silence. This human saved my life and helped me reclaim my throne, she said. If anyone has the right to fight for the future of our people, it is him. Jake felt the weight of an entire empire settling on his shoulders. In a few hours, he would face General Voltar's champion in a battle that would decide the fate of billions of people. He just hoped Maya's faith in him was not misplaced. The ancient Colosseum of Judgment had not been used for royal combat in over 300 years. Jake stood in the center of the massive arena, looking up at thousands of spectators from across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species had come to witness this historic moment. Maya sat in the royal box, wearing the crown of her ancestors. She looked calm, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. If he lost this fight, she would lose everything. The entire Zephyrian Empire would fall under General Voltar's control. Are you ready for this, human? Jake turned to see General Voltar walking toward him. The Zephyrian general wore battle armor that gleamed like silver fire. In his hands was a plasma sword that hummed with deadly energy. He was bigger than Jake, stronger, and had decades of combat experience. Ready as I will ever be, Jake said, checking his own equipment. Maya had given him the best weapons and armor the Royal Armory could provide, but he still felt like he was bringing a knife to a gunfight. General Voltar laughed. You cannot win, you know. This is not some forest skirmish where you can hide behind trees. This is honorable combat between warriors. Honor? Jake said quietly. Is that what you call making deals with your people's enemies? General Voltar's smile disappeared. I do what is necessary for the good of the Empire. When I am Emperor, there will be peace between Zephyrians and Cortons. Peace through surrender, you mean? Peace through strength, General Voltar corrected. Something a weak species like humans could never understand. Jake said nothing. He had learned long ago that the best response to insults was action, not words. The ceremony began with ancient rituals that Jake did not understand. Priests spoke in Old Zephyrian, while incense burned around the arena. Finally, a horn sounded, 3 times, and the crowd fell silent. "Let the combat begin," announced the royal herald. General Voltar attacked immediately, swinging his plasma sword in a wide arc that would have cut Jake in half if it had connected, but Jake was already moving, rolling to the side and coming up with his own weapon ready. The fight that followed was brutal and desperate. General Voltar was everything Jake had expected: fast, strong, and skilled. His plasma sword left glowing, trails in the air as he pressed his attack. Jake gave ground, using his smaller size and quickness to stay alive. "Stand still and fight like a warrior," General Voltar shouted as Jake dodged another killing blow. Jake did not answer. He was too busy trying not to die. General Voltar's sword came within inches of his head as he ducked and weaved around the arena floor. The crowd was cheering, but Jake could not tell if they were supporting him or his opponent. After 10 minutes of constant movement, Jake was getting tired. His armor felt heavy, and his breathing was becoming labored. General Voltar, meanwhile, seemed as fresh as when the fight started. "You are weakening, human," General Voltar said, pressing his attack. "Soon this will be over." Jake knew he was right. He could not keep running forever. Sooner or later, General Voltar would land a hit, and that would be the end of everything. He needed to change tactics. The next time General Voltar swung his sword, Jake did not dodge. Instead, he stepped inside the arc of the blade and grabbed General Voltar's sword arm. For a moment, they were locked together, face to face. "Impossible," General Voltar gasped. No one had ever been fast enough to catch his sword arm before. Jake smiled grimly. "You said humans were weak. You forgot that we are also stubborn." Jake twisted hard, using leverage and technique instead of raw strength. General Voltar's sword went flying across the arena floor. Before the general could recover, Jake's own blade was at his throat. The arena fell completely silent. General Voltar looked up at Jake with surprise and something that might have been respect. "Kill me then," General Voltar said. "Finish it." Jake pressed the blade a little closer to General Voltar's neck. It would be so easy. This man had tried to kill Maya, had betrayed his own people, had brought enemy fleets to attack the capital. He deserved to die. But Jake thought about what Maya had said in the forest. Killing General Voltar would solve nothing. It would only create more problems. "No," Jake said, stepping back and lowering his weapon. "You are defeated. That is enough." "General." Voltar struggled to his feet, confusion written across his face. "You spare me? Why?" "Because Maya was right," Jake said. "This empire needs healing, not more death." The crowd erupted in cheers and confusion. Some people were happy with Jake's mercy, others wanted to see blood. But the result was clear. Jake had won, and Maya remained on the throne. General Voltar looked around the arena at the cheering crowds, then back at Jake. "You are a fool, human. Mercy is weakness." "Maybe," Jake said, "but it is also what separates us from animals." General Voltar said nothing more. Royal guards escorted him away to begin his exile from Zephyrian space. As promised, his life would be spared, but he would never return. Maya came down from the royal box to meet Jake in the center of the arena. The crowd cheered as she embraced him, but Jake was too tired to enjoy the moment. "You did it," Maya said, tears in her eyes. "You saved my people." "We saved them," Jake corrected. "Together." Later, in the quiet of the royal chambers, Maya and Jake sat together looking out at the Crystal City. The immediate crisis was over, but they both knew that bigger challenges lay ahead. "What happens now?" Jake asked. Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Now I have to rebuild an empire, make peace with the Cortans, unite my people behind a common purpose." She looked at him. "I want you to stay and help me do it." Jake thought about his old life as a cargo pilot. Simple routes between peaceful worlds, no politics, no danger. It seemed very far away now. "It will not be easy," he said. "No," Maya agreed, "but nothing worthwhile ever is." Jake smiled and took her hand. All right then, let us change the galaxy. Years later, historians would mark this day as the beginning of the Great Alliance between humans and Zephyrians. It started a period of peace and prosperity that lasted for generations. But it all began with one simple choice made by a cargo pilot who decided to help a stranger in need. Sometimes the most important moments in history come from the smallest acts of kindness.